had a delay.
And he might be late because of traffic coming from Nashville. We'll see what he says.
Call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Water Planning Commission for October 2018. Mr. Neri, do we have any announcements?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that Commissioner Andrews is trying to make it from Nashville. I don't know if he will. Also, Mr. Bob Holloway was laid to rest today. I know that all of you knew Bob and had worked with him in some capacity. I've known Bob, as I said today, for 45 years in one capacity or another. And the fact remains that most of Maumelle, as you know it today, Bob had some kind of a hand in it, and he will be missed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Neri. We'll move on to the approval of the minutes. There was no meeting for September, so we will approve the August minutes. They have been made available in your packets. Do I have any comments or corrections on the August minutes?
Chairman, I make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. Minutes are approved. And now I have no comment cards for public comments on non-agenda items, so I will open the public hearing. Seeing no old business, I'll move on to new business. As I have a conflict of interest for both items of new business on the agenda, I will recuse from those items and pass the meeting over to Commissioner Todd for the discussion of those items.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Neri, we have the proposed preliminary plat for Phase 24B.
Thank you, Vice Chairman, and for tonight, Chairman Todd at the moment. After a second staff review, you can see the comments. Also, late in the day, I received an email from Mr. Rahman, who's actually on vacation in Canada. It seemed that the Holloway firm had actually sent him something on this that he did not receive. And recently, that's not too unusual. Our emails between City Hall and the Holloway firm were kicked back for a while. Sometimes they'll try to send me something, I don't get it. Sometimes I'll send them something, they don't get it. I'm not sure exactly what's going on. However, I want to have you read Mazan's email that he sent. There are 4 big factors in both the plat and the development plan, and the comments are the same on each. Number 1 would be the satisfaction of all of the engineering comments from ETC engineers. That would include the proposed modification of the drainage easement. Number 2 would be a determination on jurisdictional waters of the United States and/or wetlands or streams. That work began some time ago, and it actually hit a snag. Since then, I know that the applicant is trying to contract with either GB Mack, who is our wetland consultant on the wetland management plan, as well as another firm, to actually have that work completed. As we noticed in the subcommittee meeting, and as discussing it with Commissioner Johnson, there's a huge swath of floodplain that runs through this development. There are probably more lots affected than are not affected. Therefore, I requested that the Holloway firm apply for a Clomer F, a conditional letter of map revision based on fill from FEMA. FEMA's going to have to buy off on that and issue a letter of map revision to remove those properties from the special flood hazard area. Even after that, the applicant must apply from my office for a developmental permit for work in the floodplain, as well as a no adverse impact certificate that must be stamped and sealed by a PE. Those are some pretty heavy things to overcome. On the plat, I'm going to recommend for a contingent approval, and I'm going to remind the Commission in this case, a contingent approval is merely a promise by this Commission to do what you say you're going to do if the applicant does what he says he's going to do. No development can take place unless all of these facets are addressed. Plus, once the preliminary plat is contingently approved, the clock starts ticking on the applicant. That preliminary plat is good for 1 year and can be good longer than that if work is continuing in the field. Now, I don't mean design in the office, I mean breaking dirt in the field. So if you're actually working in the field, then those 4 aspects of this plan have been satisfied. Staff is going to recommend for a contingent approval, contingent upon all staff comments and any further commissioner comments.
Thank you, Mr. Neary. Commissioners, we have one public comment card. Do we want to do that before the representative for the applicant or after?
Is it on this
On these?
issue?
Yeah,
I'd say before.
okay. I have Mr. Scott Groomer. Would you like to come before the commission to speak, sir?
Thank you, Commissioner. Scott Grummer, 16 Ozark Drive. And before I speak, again, I just saw this on my calendar just a little while ago, so I'm coming to the punch a little late. And I also want to say that the reason I'm standing up here has nothing to do against Mr. Nair and the subdivision and the developer and the owner and all of that. So I'm not against this development whatsoever. And but as a citizen of the city of Maumelle, which I actually work in Conway, but as a citizen of the city of Maumelle, I just feel like sometimes as a citizen, it's best forum and best way for me to kind of at least voice my my perception. So there's been a lot of things that have been done with the city over the years that I haven't been a part of, and one of the things that is just kind of important to me, and I realize that as this area develops out with the third interchange coming in, is that long ago, whenever Carnahan Drive was built out, it was built out and stubbed and ended at White Oak Bayou, which it's a natural preserve, it's a wetlands, it's protected. And I know that in conversations there have been many attempts to try to bridge that gap, and it really hasn't been there because of the cost incurred in that. But nonetheless, the fact that it was put into Maumelle Forward, it was originally part of the master street plan for Maumelle, and it was taken off. I'm not too sure when in the process, so I'm ignorant of that side. So forgive me there. But either way, being that it was once part of the plan and it's not there now, with our third interchange coming in, my concern is the fact that you have you've got traffic that will be coming in, and they're going to try to route it to Country Club and bring it into Maumelle. But who knows, 20, 30, 50 years from now, whether or not if there might be a viable option for the city of Maumelle to utilize this area and utilize that as a means of trying to tap into the traffic and the energy that's building along the third interchange from an economic standpoint, because number one, you have a school, high school, which utilizes an auditorium for the Arkansas Symphony, so that's a huge asset for the community. White Oak Bayou is a beautiful wetlands and a beautiful bayou, and nobody really gets to utilize it because nobody knows it's there. It's kind of hidden. It's a hidden gem for those that live around it. That's an asset for the community, which could be utilized for economic development into the future. Not to mention that pathway through there is a direct pathway to our town center and downtown, which again, if you want a strong core central for the community, that's where it's going to be, despite all of the potential growth on the outskirts. So my standing up here today really has nothing to do with this development. I think it's a great plan. And I'd like to also say, Mr. Holloway's passing, I certainly have sincere thoughts for the family and this community, because he's played a huge part in its development. So, so I'm not again. I mean, I believe it's a great subdivision. I think it's beautifully designed, and my only concern is that the location of this and then the subdivisions that have been coming in to the west of it are basically creating a wall that's going to keep you from ever being able to put any type of straight pathway into that third interchange. So I guess my final comments would be, I wish there was some way in which we could design a street, or whether if it's residential with a little bit more right-of-way or something, so that in the future, if we ever want to tap that asset, it could be designed into the community to be able to go through it, versus being a residential where you're just going to have stop signs and we're going to lose that possibility for a direct link. That's all I'm saying. That's all I have. Thank you very
sir.
much.
Okay, with that, any commissioners have comments or questions of staff? Any commissioners have any comments of the applicant?
Mark, would you come up for a second? Just got a couple questions on the plat. How
Mark
did-
Rutter with Holloway Engineering.
I'm sorry, Mark. You're providing an approximate wetland boundary limit of the White Oak Bayou. Can you tell me how that line was ascertained?
That was done a long time ago. I think it was Bill Richardson that had done a delineation, and it had gone a long way throughout the wetlands, and that's the line we used on that.
So the delineation came from a report of some sort that was provided to the city?
It did, but that particular report was never completed. It was completed down to the further to the south, but they didn't actually complete it through this area.
Let me ask a different way. Was there a jurisdictional determination to provide guidance on where that line is located?
Not that I know of specifically.
Let's say we remove it from the plat then. So does it have a function other than, does it have any other function that I'm missing?
No.
Unless any commissioners have any other objection. I mean, it's just randomly, unless there's a reference or something, why the line.
Well, I mean, it definitely follows the outline of the bio. You know, we've attached GeoRef files to make sure that all that's correct. And I believe that throughout there is wetland signs have been constructed.
Is there anything that delineates that on the site that we're aware of, or that I'm not visited the site?
The report was never finished, never submitted to the Corps.
Through this area, that's for sure. So.
That's
you
actually
want it to
part
be
of,
shown?
I'm sorry?
You want it to be shown after my comment?
That's actually part of what GB Mac or Joel is going to do. It's part of their project. So we're kind of jumping the gun a little bit on that.
My comment stands. What's the timing of when you want the drainage, is the drainage easement dedicated to the city?
No.
No, it's not. It's just an easement that's on the property.
That's right. And it would be rescinded and revised. That was a requirement from Mazan
On
phase 24A.
okay, so he made that a requirement for the development that's on the west.
That's right.
Okay, so we wouldn't want to rescind that, and it says modification for this portion of development prior to construction.
Yes.
Okay. There's a development, I think, that was, and I talked with Mr. Ritter today too as well, so I know a little bit was it 20? You and I had this discussion,
Yes.
and then I had to go. Can you, and it was similar in nature, I do remember that, and you brought some of the aspects of that development of what you referenced here and what you're trying to accomplish. Did it have the same approach here? Did you have jurisdictional did you approach it in the same manner as what you're doing with this phase?
Yeah, very much so. 12 had a lot of lands under the 100-year. Also 20 and 21 both have ponds. 17 has pond, so does 21.
You pushed preliminary plat and development plan through prior to the determination?
Yes.
In either one of those, was there a section 10 required?
I don't recall on that.
Okay.
And I honestly don't know on this.
Well,
Yeah.
we don't know yet.
That's right.
Not yet.
That's right.
Well, the staff had indicated that it was just 404, but there could be other permits triggered.
Could be.
On the jurisdictional.
Maybe. I just don't know yet. That's just going to depend on the results of GB Mac or Joel's study.
But at least a 404 if that's what's found.
Right.
A minimum.
Yeah, minimum.
you had indicated here on the preliminary plat, the property going beyond, the phase line for the development of the lake. And is that the intent, for this entire area to provide is it going to require that entire area to be excavated?
Well,
Kinda
no,
all that kinda
because
comes around, too.
per Maumel's rules, we can't be digging over on another phase.
Yeah, but yet it's shown.
That's not proved yet. Well, yes, but the intent is actually to build only the acre of that lake in this phase. It's 1.5 or 4.
That would be the area that would be contained
Yes,
within the phase?
within the boundary limits. And your question earlier, it's actually only 7.5 acres that are under the 100-year. I ran some quick numbers on it.
I think in our discussion, I was saying the number of lots.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not misunderstood for acres, but no.
Right, but I was curious what the acreage was.
For the displacement of, you're talking about, in particular, if it was in the displacement of fill.
Yes,
It's quite a bit of material.
yes.
I don't have any other comments. Thank you.
Okay. Any other commissioner questions of staff or the applicant? Any other public comment? If not, I'd entertain a motion, and we need to be specific when you make your motion.
Trying to figure out how to word the thing.
Well,
I'd make a motion to approve the proposed preliminary plat, Country Club of Arkansas, subject to city engineer. What are my 4 points?
right here.
The city engineer, subject to the jurisdictional waters getting taken care of, the Clomer F being taken care of, and no adverse impact certificate. And any other commissioner comment or staff comment. I think that covered it.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor say yes. Yes. Any opposed say no. Okay. Mr. Neri, we have the recommendation to go on to the city council for the preliminary development plan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And while we were speaking, Commissioner Ramsey received a text from Commissioner Andrews. He will not make it this evening. The comments are exactly the same. The recommendation is for a due pass recommendation to the Maumelle City Council,
Again, subject to.
contingent upon satisfaction of all staff comments and any further commissioner comments.
And just for record, you can't have a approved preliminary development plan unless you have a approved by staff and commissioners preliminary plat.
That's correct.
Any questions of the commissioners for staff or applicant? If not, I'll take a recommendation, or this is a recommendation to the city
Correct.
council. Take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would recommend to the city board,
Council,
council, the proposed preliminary development plan, subject to all staff and commissioner comments.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor say yes. Yes. Any opposed say no. Okay. With that, I'll turn it back over to you, sir.
I got a question of staff as we move forward. Since we approve this, if you mind, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Or, I'm sorry,
We'll
or
keep
I don't
you
know,
as the
still on the same topic, so I guess, to you, John. Just as, from on edification is that, so the clock is, once it goes through the council, the clock begins ticking for the applicant. So he
No,
has,
it's actually ticking
today?
now.
Today. So he has a year to complete these items. So if he is doing his due diligence moving forward, and I'm not to doubt that it may take more than a year to get all of these satisfied, and that runs out, is he allowed an extension? How's that handled?
Well, in this case, he'd actually have to come back with a new preliminary plat. You can get an extension on the development plan, but that's kind of a moot point if your plat's dead. So that's why they're back with this preliminary plat, as you recall. So that's what I said. A contingent approval in this case is really good incentive for the applicant to get on it. And when I say a year, it's like I said before. It can go longer than that, but work has to be going on in the field. If work is going on in the field, then items 1 through 4 have been satisfied, obviously.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Now then, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Todd. I will now close the public hearing. We'll move on to council liaison reports, first being September 4th, which was mine. As far as items concerning the Planning Commission, there was the second reading of Ordinance 960, which to accept the streets of Carnahan Village. Then there was the first reading of Ordinance 961, which seeks to establish speed limits in rear access alleyways. And as far as non-action items, the mayor did announce at this meeting that under Metro Plan, the city has been awarded $1 million to go towards the new interchange. And that concludes the relevant information for September 4th. Again, echo that. Congratulations, Mr. Mayor, for getting that work done.
I presume that goes along with what was discussed in the newspaper this morning, to say the funds are gonna be there?
Maybe.
Fly in the face of the lame duck.
There's also engineering costs and construction costs by the highway department added to the top.
Oh, that's pocket change.
I wish I had your money then, Fisher.
Nice pockets. Moving on to September 17th, Commissioner Ramsey, that was you.
It was the third reading of Ordinance 960, dedication of streets and drainage. It passed. And then second reading of 961 with the speed limits in the alleyways. And that was about it.
Thank you, Commissioner Ramsey. October 1st, that was Commissioner Todd.
Yeah, and we had the third reading of Ordinance 961 establishing a speed limit on alleyways, future alleyways. It didn't really affect any existing, but because that was a Class 6 street, but it was, the rear access was a 25-foot, which is a rather small street. The existing 25 miles an hour was just a little too fast. So it was passed. And again, the good thing about the rear access easement standards is there's not been any built since the ordinance passed. We hadn't had a need for them.
Anything further on October 1st?
No, that was it.
Thank you, Commissioner Todd. Moving on to October 15th, Commissioner Johnson.
First reading of ordinance to establish the master agreement for small wireless facilities and the standards they're going to be put in and how much they're going to get charged, et cetera.
Anything further?
No, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. For next month, November 5th, Commissioner Green, that is yours, and November 19th belongs to Commissioner Andrews. And I understand from Mr. Neri that we have a decision to make before we adjourn concerning the date of the December meeting. Mr. Neri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you see on your agendas, the November meetings accelerated 1 week because of Thanksgiving on the 15th. Subcommittee meetings on the day would regularly be, which is the 8th. In December, The third Thursday of the month is December 21st, 4 days before Christmas. The fourth Thursday of the month, when the meeting would regularly be, is December 28th, 3 days after Christmas. So that is up for you all to decide this evening of what day you want to have that on, the 21st?
20th and
27th.
I'm sorry.
20th.
20th and 27th.
Am I looking at the wrong calendar?
December.
What year are you in?
I'm apparently a different one than you guys are in.
Should be either the 20th or 27th.
20th or 27th, okay.
And a question for, I guess jointly, Mr. Neri and City Attorney Norris. Does this require a formal motion and vote or an informal decision?
I don't care if you have a show of hands. I just want you to decide.
Mr. City Attorney, any comment?
I'd prefer a motion if you have a date.
Yeah, because we typically set the meeting schedule.
We need a motion on this one in November as well,
I've only done
too.
this once before, and all the time that I've been here, and it was done by motion.
Right. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the December regular meeting be on December 20th.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Those opposed, no. All right, we will meet on December the 20th.
All righty.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Motion and a second. All those in favor, yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. We are adjourned. Adjourning. Caleb, you're awfully excited to get back out there in the room.
It's done for the night. I'm gonna go home.
Oh, you're not gonna go